The ocean hides some of history's most impossible secrets, from ships made of stone to an underwater sniper making a completely blind kill. These are 5 times naval warfare broke every law of logic, starting with the submarine that took down a giant. In late 1944, the Imperial Japanese Navy secretly launched the Shinano. It was an absolute monster, a heavily armored supercarrier so massive it was considered entirely unsinkable. It was supposed to turn the tide of the war in the Pacific. But on its absolute first maiden voyage, a lone American submarine, the USS Archerfish, spotted a massive shadow cutting through the dark water. The sub-commander realized he had just found the ultimate prize. For 12 grueling hours, the Archerfish relentlessly stalked the giant carrier on the surface, keeping just out of sight while calculating the perfect intercept point. Knowing he would only get one chance, the commander ordered his sub to dive, deliberately slipping past a deadly wall of heavily armed escort destroyers. At point-blank range, the Archerfish fired a devastating spread of 6 torpedoes. 4 of them slammed directly into the massive steel hull of the Shinano, ripping it open. The biggest, most expensive warship ever built slowly rolled over and sank to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean before it ever launched a single plane. The ultimate Goliath, destroyed by a single stone. For our next dossier, outgunned and abandoned off Samar, Commander Ernest Evans was about to execute the most suicidal charge in naval history. A 2,000-ton destroyer versus the largest battleship ever constructed. Any other captain would have retreated, but Ernest Evans didn't just stay, he charged. October 1944, the USS Johnston was all that stood between the Japanese Imperial Fleet and a defenseless landing force. Facing 18-inch guns that could vaporize his ship in a single hit, Evans ordered his crew to fire every round. Weaving through a storm of steel, they used a smokescreen as their only armor, charging directly into the center of the enemy line. Even as the ship burned and half the crew was lost, Evans didn't stop. He turned his shattered destroyer and charged an entire squadron of Japanese destroyers. He unleashed such pure, lethal aggression that the Imperial fleet convinced themselves they were fighting a massive task force and turned back. As the Johnston finally sank, a Japanese captain was seen standing on his deck, saluting the wreckage. Moving to the freezing North Sea for our next declassified file, 2 blind predators are about to engage in the only fully submerged submarine kill in history. In 1945, the British V-class submarine HMS Venturer was hunting a massive prize. The German Type 9 D2 U-boat U-864. The vessel was secretly smuggling advanced jet blueprints and 67 tons of liquid mercury to Japan. The U-boat commander knew he was being tracked. He dove deep, beginning a complex, evasive zigzag pattern. The British captain, Jimmy Launders, was trapped. If he used active sonar to ping the target, it would instantly reveal his own position, turning the hunter into the hunted. Operating in absolute dead silence, the British crew listened to the faint echo of German propellers through passive hydrophones. Using raw math under pressure, the captain calculated the enemy's speed, depth, and 3D trajectory entirely by hand. Guessing exactly where the U-boat would be minutes in the future, he fired a spread of 4 torpedoes blind into the abyss. With a strict 17.5-second delay between each, the U-boat heard them coming and successfully dodged the first 3, but unknowingly steered directly into the path of the 4th. A massive underwater shockwave violently rocked the ocean. It remains the only submerged sub-to-sub kill in naval history. Shifting to the Atlantic coast for our next operation, the British are about to drive 4 tons of hidden explosives straight into the most heavily defended dry dock in Europe. In 1942, the Axis controlled the largest, most heavily guarded dry dock in the world, allowing their massive battleships to repair and dominate the ocean. The Allies had to destroy it, but it was surrounded by an impenetrable fortress. So they hatched a completely insane plan. They took an obsolete, beat-up destroyer called the HMS Campbelltown and secretly packed its hull with 4.5 tons of high explosives, burying the bomb deep inside a concrete vault. They painted the ship to look like an enemy patrol boat and sailed it straight into the heavily fortified harbor under the cover of darkness. When the massive searchlights finally caught them, it was too late. The captain intentionally rammed the ship directly into the massive steel gates of the dry dock at full speed. The crew abandoned the vessel under heavy fire. The next morning, hundreds of high-ranking enemy officers swarmed the stranded ship at what they thought was a failed, pathetic attack. They were completely unaware of the concrete time bomb ticking beneath their boots. At exactly noon, the massive 4-ton charge detonated. The colossal fireball completely vaporized the steel gates, permanently crippling the enemy's naval fleet for the rest of the war. It was the greatest Trojan horse of the 20th century. Closing out this briefing in Manila Bay, we look at the ultimate defensive anomaly, the terrifying reality of America's concrete warship. In 1942, the Japanese fired over 1,000 armor-piercing shells at a single American ship. It didn't sink. It didn't even catch fire. The walls were so thick, the sailors inside didn't even stop playing cards. To understand this, look at the sheer structural mass. The US didn't just build a bunker. They leveled a jagged rock and poured thousands of tons of reinforced concrete. They engineered 20-foot thick walls, shaped the exterior like a dreadnought hull, and bolted on massive 14-inch naval turrets. It sat in Manila Bay as an indestructible concrete anomaly. When the Philippines fell, the concrete battleship stayed in the fight. Japanese artillery pounded it relentlessly, but the high compressive strength of the concrete absorbed every shockwave. The explosions didn't even warm the barracks inside. Realizing they couldn't shatter the fort, the Japanese got creative. If they couldn't sink it, they'd try to cook the crew alive. Today, Fort Drum sits in the bay as a rusted ghost.
This is Warforged.